Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to your main card event. Yes, today, maybe Friday Night Lights. You could do a multitude of stuff. Go watch Austin High go score a touchdown. Go watch Friday Night Football everywhere in Texas, watching the playoffs. You could be at home watching Jake Paul get knocked out by Mike Tyson, or you could be here listening in on the greatest podcast ever me, Joe Rogan. We see you. I'm only 5 miles away, man. Come find me. We are ready to begin this great episode, and this week's episode is going to be a crazy one. We have a lot to recap. Ole Miss beat Georgia. We have games that are just so meaningful for next week, which is Tennessee, Georgia, to see how that plays out. We have games reactions from Miami, who lost a crazy game to Georgia Tech, who are this year's giant killers. Just so much stuff we have to hash through. So let's get it started, Kieran. What did you see when the Ole Miss Rebels took down, sadly, my Bulldogs?
I think I saw a team that clicked. I saw a really, really cohesive offense that looked like it was just going to march down and score. And that was what happened when you gave them the ball. And they were just able to find the rhythm, find the method, find those extra that little bit of sanity and really cling on to it and draw that through the game and keep just a constant thread of we're going to score and every play is a scoring play in their minds and in their playbook, certainly. And I think that was really a very, a dominating performance by Old Miss. You saw a team that had looked, unless it was Alabama, pretty much unstoppable, but you knew the failure was there. You had seen Carson Beck's turnover issues. You had seen the defense looking really porous at times. And you thought you could take advantage of it. You went in there and you did it and you got it done. I think Jackson Dart played fantastic, had, I think, a signature game, a signature win against Georgia. And I think on the other side of the ball, right, Georgia really has quarterback problems. Like, as much as we'd like to ignore it, they have quarterback problems. I think it's up to like 9 interceptions in the past 3 games. And he threw three against Texas. He threw another three against Old Miss. It is ugly. Georgia is going to struggle to win games against big teams with numbers like that. And even if they somehow manage, they beat Tennessee and they end up in the SEC championship, you have to think that an Oregon, maybe an Ohio State, is going to take advantage of that and absolutely dismantle Georgia in a playoff game. And I think that has to be a huge concern for Dogs fans, especially those named Kirtan. And let's hear his depressionistic thoughts.
Okay, look, I think all of this stems from one issue right now, and that's our offense cannot move. I watched Carson Beck progressively get worse and worse and worse and worse in every single game he's played. And sadly, the blame needs to go somewhere right now because we have nowhere else to place it, and it has to go to him. I think our defense is phenomenal. We were holding this team to very low points. Then we had to wear down because of the fact that we cannot move this ball. Carson Beck, when you finish out with 118 yards and an interception, it's just pitiful. You have nothing on the ground. You have nothing to show for it. At least Jackson Dart, he may not have had the best game, but he still had a touchdown, an interception, and he was the leading rusher. You're a pocket system quarterback and you cannot effectively do your job. We have an issue. Even Stetson Bennett was able to do this, and he was able to scramble out and get some yards. That's the biggest issue right now. Secondly, we're not breaking runs and we're not identifying ways to stop the quarterback. The quarterback, we need at least aspire something out there. We only thrive well when we play against systematic quarterbacks, i.e., Quinn Ewers, i.e., all these teams that we played, Cade Klubnik, whenever we can contain them to the pocket. But once someone scrambles on us and we understand they're going to play hard nosed football, they seem to be able to disintegrate and dismantle our entire linebacker core because our linebackers don't know how to play their position right, or they don't know how to like contain QB. I don't want to say position right because it's going to be pretty harsh, but they aren't able to contain the quarterback, and the quarterback is just able to eat up yards against us. Secondly, clock management needs to be studied. We need to get back in the film room. understand that we need to control the clock more. We're giving up too much time of possession. And look, the other thing is we have to understand we're playing the hardest schedule. That cannot be something to like pout about. We are pound for pound the best team, I would argue, by talent. And I think that we need to show for it what we have, that we still are the two-time national championship winners in the last 4 years. We still play the hardest schedule and we still go back to back. And look, now if you think about it, there's really no shot for us to make SEC championship game because we kind of shot ourselves in the foot here. But I do believe we will make it to the playoffs. We may be a lower seed, maybe a 7 seed. I think we should make it. I don't see there any reason for Indiana to make it over us just based up purely off the schedule and who's the better team, if that's what the college football criteria is. And so, for that matter, I think we're going to make it. I feel like we're always going to have a deep playoff run. Yes, when we get to teams that have multi like level quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel, all these Big Ten teams that have a two-way player and a quarterback, that we're gonna have to definitely work on. And Carson Banks needs to become more accurate and more decisive. That's the two biggest things as a quarterback, and he cannot do them well. Change it or replace him. So two options. So that's what I have to say. I think we're gonna get the win though today, but we'll talk about that later or tomorrow. But we'll talk about that later. Alrighty. Enough of just pure sadness. On to sadness for the Tigers. Alabama played LSU in Death Valley. Let us note, and everybody thought, oh, it was going to be a close game. It's the game of the week. Well, if you were a Bama fan, it was the game of the year for you. And the fact that all you did was party and yell at a bunch of folks in Death Valley, whipping them 45-10, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark. Kieran, what did you see from this just horrendous game for LSU and this outstanding performance from Bama?
Yeah, I saw a Jalen Milrow that maybe looked the best we've seen him. That Georgia game was something special, but this game he elevated even more. He was just able to absolutely scamper through that LSU defense, scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring, and they weren't able to stop him. You saw really, I think, the fundamental dismantling of a defense. And I know this has raised questions about is LSU's defensive recruiting where it needs to be? Is all of that, are they, is their defensive system where it needs to be? And I think they've just exposed the huge weakness. LSU overall is improved on defense. They're worse on offense than they were last year, but they're improved on defense. But their weakness lies with guys like Lenore Sellers, like your Marcel Reeds, and your Jalen Milrose. When they can throw and run the ball, when they have that double threat, they're able to create some option plays and they are elusive and quick with their legs. It gives LSU absolute fits. They just cannot handle it. And I think a lot of that is due to, and I'm going to get a little technical here, but you see a reluctance of the secondary to come up and run support. They have a lot of, you know, almost not fear, but a little bit of trepidation surrounding the wide receiver cores of their opponents, right? So you don't see a whole lot of corners in run support. You don't see a whole lot of, just good, solid team, read, go get the quarterback, right? And when you're able to pull and get to that edge with nobody guarding you, right? It really does not matter how good of an athlete Whit Weeks is on the inside at linebacker or their defensive end is. It does not matter. When there is a quarterback and he has an angle and he has leverage on you, he's going to win and be able to get down the field. And when you're able to turn that into one missed tackle, he can take it to the house. And really, ultimately, it's about for LSU, if I'm their defensive coordinator, right? This whole week has been set the edge drills. You are literally, your job is to make him go anywhere but outside of you, to force him back inside, to clog him up, make him take time, which takes away his speed. When you're able to make really good quarterbacks and really good runners, running backs, quarterbacks, take time and have to slowly navigate, it allows your defense to get off blocks and swarm tackle. And that's what LSU needs to be doing, and that's what they're not doing, and that's why they got their butt kicked. It wasn't even really by all of Alabama. It was by personally Jalen Milroe, Jam Miller, and the Alabama offensive line that won that game for Alabama. Also, their defense played outstanding. You saw a return, well, not a return to form in terms of the linebackers played much better, and they were able to, as we said last week, the two keys to the game were getting Jalen Milroe boxed in, and getting Garrett Nussmeier uncomfortable and for Bama, right? And you saw both of those things happen, and both of them go in Bama's favor, and Bama won the game, and that is essentially what happened.
Yeah. And so what I took away from it is that I think DeBoer is finding his rhythm as a coach. He is understanding the personnel of his players that look, I went from Washington where we were all air raid, and I have to understand that this is not my personnel anymore. Something I wish a lot of coaches all around, no matter what level you play at, I wish they understood that you have to play for your personnel and not just whatever you want. No names being said, just keeping it vague. And I think that's what Kalen DeBoer finally did. He finally said, you know what, let's release the animal. Let's let the animal loose. And that's what he definitely did with Jalen Milroe. He said, Milroe, this is your game. You are our leader. Take control. Understand what your strengths are. You can run the ball effectively. You are a Lamar Jackson type player. You target your tight ends. You are very effective on your feet, and that is very hard for a lot of teams to stop. We saw what happened with Georgia. Georgia is built very, very similarly to LSU. And when Jalen Milroe is able to take off against Georgia, you can bet on it being the same for LSU. I would argue Georgia and LSU are almost identical teams. I say they have really similar talent, great wide receivers, a great O line, good defense, systematic quarterback, good running backs, literally the same team, and they still can't beat Bama. Neither of these teams can beat Bama somehow, but somehow Vandy can. Just leaving it out there, blows my mind every single time I think about it. And so all they did was they said, "Look, Jalen Milroe, we're going to give you the ball. Just play your style of football," and that's what he did. And I honestly think I can say now, even though we've been on this rocky relationship with Bama about are they good enough? Are they not? How is this going to work? I would say now, Bama, I think, is making their way back. I think they should honestly be much higher than they are. I think 10 is a disgrace after they just dismantled LSU. And I honestly can't wait to see what happens because it would be very fun to watch a ranked number 9 ranked Bama play against a number 2 ranked like Ohio State because I would love to see that matchup. I would love to see Indiana taking on Bama, and then we finally realize like, is Indiana all that they're cracked up to be? But that's just my 2 cents. I think it was a phenomenal game. LSU, I think you just need to get more involved, get Garrett Nussmeier to hit up Eddie Lacy. It's just a poor game on that facet and great game for Bama. I think Bama won this game. LSU did not lose it, and that makes sense. All right, next, enough talking about the SEC. Let's get into the Big 12. And I wrote one single note for this game, and it was titled Tortillas. Kieran, care to elaborate?
Honestly, I have no clue what you're on about. Um, I was slightly yes. I see what you're on about. So, Colorado and Texas Tech. And really, you saw, I think, another week where the stars shine for Colorado. They're able to just lean on good players, very good players, and get results. I think that's really indicative of a team that is a team, right? I don't think Colorado's a program yet. Maybe prove me wrong, but I still don't think that Colorado is going to be year over year. When Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter are gone, what's left? And there's so much of the team at this point that it's kind of getting ridiculous. But their stars are out and they're winning. Nice performance by Colorado. You know, Texas Tech is a good football team, but they really couldn't keep up.
Yeah. And what I was meaning by tortillas is that I don't know if Kieran just elaborated on this, but Deion Sanders basically got very upset and went very famous about how he's yelling that it's the same thing that happened with Texas all these players are or all these fans are throwing tortillas and beer on the field as they're upset, and it's just unacceptable. I just found it hilarious because that's what they're known for. And additionally, Shador Sanders did sign somebody's tortilla, so it's just a fun fact. I think yeah, I think it's the same thing for Colorado. You just play through your star players. You let Shador Sanders take control. You let Travis Hunter take control, and that's what's been really effective for them. I think that they've created a stronger offense and defensive production has gone up. They are able to conquer the tall task of playing better teams. And again, I think we're just going to see that move on and carry on throughout the years. The real question is what happens next year? Do we see a potential move for both Deion Sanders? Does Deion Sanders move from NCAA to NFL to go coach with his sons? Does he stay? How does that look when he loses all through or his two best players? I would argue, but that's still up for discussion. As long as they're bringing in the recruiting classes, that doesn't matter. So good for them as long as they're bringing in what they need. Alrighty, jumping over to Florida, we got Virginia Tech and Clemson. I know that has nothing to do with Florida. It's just when I think of ACC, I think of Florida. So, here, what'd you see?
You know, I think Clemson, they've had their struggles, and there's really it's kind of almost a dichotomy, a tale of two halves with Clemson this year. They've really struggled in some points and looked honestly terrible, but they've also gotten some really, really good just wins and even more looked good. They were able to take care of Virginia Tech. I really think that Clemson is kind of a shadow team. It's hard to exactly gauge them because they did poorly against Georgia, well against a lot of other teams. Until they play Miami, if they play Miami for the ACC conference title, it's going to be hard to know exactly where the chips lie with Clemson. But I think solid performance, team you should have beaten, and you took care of them.
Yeah, and I would say the exact same thing. Kieran hit this nail on the head. It's just Clemson's finding their own. They're just trying to figure out where they are truly. And right now, I think the Louisville was just a bad loss, and I think that this was a good way to come back. All right, next is someone in the ACC. This is what we call a giant killer game. What happened to Miami, Kieran?
Well, I think this is a case of all their mistakes kind of catching up to them. Miami had been playing it as Miami is wont to do, fast and loose. They've been a team that has leaned on Cam Ward's stardom and Xavier Restrepo and the big play receiving core on that team to win games. And Georgia Tech caught them out. Georgia Tech is a physical football team. They are a solid football team. They will run the ball. They are very versatile and a different style of attack to what Miami had seen. And Miami got caught napping. It is really, really hard when you play that kind of fast and loose football to get behind and then be able to, against a solid team that's not going to throw away a lead, to get behind and then enable yourself to come back and get the win. You've seen Miami, they haven't they've played good teams, but they haven't played teams I think to the caliber of a Georgia Tech. Cuz you saw they started the beginning of FSU's terror spiral into the pits of death. And and you really saw they fluctuated throughout the season, got some good wins, had some ugly losses, but I really think they were able to just dismantle Miami in a way that Miami didn't believe it could be dismantled. They thought they were going to cruise to the ACC title, and they cruised right into a horde of Yellow Jackets. And really, it's kind of shameful for Miami, but at the same time, it's not over because it is the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, and I think for Miami, it was just a bad loss, and I think they're going to respond well. So like this advice at this adversity, but I mean, you just can't let this happen. You can't start playing from behind always and expect to win. It's just brutal. So I think that again, you're not going to miss out on the playoffs. I think you're too strong of a team for them to do that, but still, you got to find your way back. That's all I got for that one. So now we get to move to the fun segment where we show y'all what our
First,
up, oh,
there was a game that was played in Austin that resulted in, I don't know if you've ever eaten gator before, our wonderful listeners, but there were some Longhorns that got to munch on a little bit of gator tail and absolutely dismantled a Florida team that I think is better than people have been giving it credit for. Yes, oh, I know he's being a Texas homer once again. But I've said this a lot of times. They played Georgia close. They've taken teams to the wire, and they haven't gotten that signature win, but they played well. But it was too much for the freshman quarterback, the Texas defense, and a rejuvenant Quinn Ewers were able to get it done. Just wanted to mention that Texas is the cream of the crop, not losing to silly teams like Old Miss. What even is an Old Miss? I don't know. But Kirtan, bring out the beaver.
this guy. Okay, well, Kieran's just lucky that we lost. It won't happen again. It's just these UT fans are always salty when they lose, which is weird because salty's great on steak. Um,
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Here we go, and this is the beaver poll. Kieran, walk us through it.
Yeah, so Oregon still at number one. The Ducks are not ducking around. They are keeping it serious and staying as the number one team in the nation. Two, you got Ohio State. I think they are really 1A, 1B to Oregon. They played them close, lost by a point on a honestly kind of misexecuted final drive. Texas, ugly loss to Georgia. Looks like they are back to their usual stampeding selves. Alabama, emergent win against LSU, a team that's as talented as any and can really ball. Tennessee, really the benefit of some other slides here, but certainly a worthy team with a big game against Georgia coming up. Ole Miss, really great team. Um, in case you can't see this, they're ranked number 6. I'm going in numerical order. So Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Alabama 4, Tennessee 5, Ole Miss 6. Statement win over Georgia. We know they have it. They had it when they had to have it, and they're still very much in the playoff hunt. Georgia, now a 2-loss team. Yikes. How does it feel? And really, I think they're against the back rail for playoff contention and getting a spot in the new and improved playoff 2 years in a row, potentially being left out should more chaos not happen. Number 8, LSU. They played well, and I think they're still a very good team, but they had an ugly loss to what we think and the poll thinks is a very good team in Alabama. So they're down to 8. Penn State is number 9. The Nittany Lions are kind of existing, not winning any big games, and trying to clinch a 12 seed or an 11 seed, as it should be. Miami, terrible, terrible, ugly loss to Georgia Tech, but they're still kicking around and they still probably have the best quarterback in all of college football. Hard to count them out. Notre Dame, they've been up and down. They have a real test against Army next week, but for now they sit at 11. 12 is Indiana. The reason they're here is because they haven't played nobody. They've played 0 bowl eligible teams. That will change with the Ohio State game, but I think Indiana is a solid team and a very hard-nosed football team that is going to be scrappy and contending for the playoffs. SMU, a chance to run away with the ACC trophy on the Pony Express in their very first year. They're looking great. They're rolling, dismantling Pitt, and getting great wins all along the way as the Pony Express picks up steam. BYU, top of the Big 12, absolute class. I think they'll win again this week. Very good job to the Cougars. A&M, you're still being punished for that South Carolina loss. Hopefully, you can get a little higher to boost Texas's strength of schedule, but solid team nonetheless. Army, Bryson Daly, and the Black Knights here to save us all. I think Army should be the highest ranked Group of Five team, and we in fact have them as the highest ranked Group of Five team due to unforeseeable circumstances. Other than Bryson Daly's amazing and it's Army. 18 is Clemson. Very ugly loss, but they're still in it. 19 is Colorado. They are new to the poll. We cannot ignore the stardom. Even the model can't ignore the stardom. South Carolina, again, Lenora Sellers, Shane Beamer on fire, and a absolutely wicked defensive line, making a solid SEC squad. Pitt is down two after getting beat by SMU, but we still think they're a solid team in the ACC. Vandy is, they've had some struggles, lost to South Carolina this week, but we still think they're an incredibly dangerous team. Kansas State still hanging in there. They've had some rough times, but what can you do? And the Pac 2 continues to make an appearance with Washington State representing, have a solid record. Very, very, really just commendable from Washington State this whole year, considering what they've been through. And at 25, Iowa State trying to fight its way back into the Big 12.
Yeah. And I think Kieran hit that right on the head. Highlights are Georgia fell, Ole Miss big climb, Bama very big climb. Climb. Actually, Kieran was wrong on this. The highest ranked group of five team is still Boise State. We do have them at 14.
Oh, it's at 14. I completely missed them. I am so
All right,
sorry, Boise
Army,
State.
but Army is very close behind. They do have a good game against Notre Dame, which could boost them way higher up in the rankings. Clemson, Colorado moving their way up slowly. South Carolina also moving their way up. Vandy on back burner still, and Iowa State, of course, bringing up the rear after that loss to Kansas. So that's just the beaver poll for you. We will keep her updated as long as we need, and when it comes to playoff time, we will give you our playoff brackets, and we'll see if we guess it correct or incorrect. But yeah, moving on to our final segment, we have the reactions. Who
What?
do we have up first?
Previews. Come on, Kirtan. You've been doing
Previews.
this
It is
for too long to
9:01.
forget the
I
name.
am super sleepy.
Yeah, right. I think that's the chicken coma. All right. First up on the docket, we've got Utah and Colorado. A sizzling Big 12 matchup. It's actually not so sizzling because Utah cannot get anything cooking offensively. The real big question for me here is how much can Colorado pour on this poor Utah team? And can Utah's defense keep them in touching distance of Colorado? I don't think they can. I think Colorado runs away 35-21. And with Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders, and company exploiting a offensively struggling Utah team to their gain and another Colorado win.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be similar to what Kieran said. I think Colorado's just going to keep relying on their guns, stick to it, stick to their pace of play. I believe it's in Boulder this game. So I don't think they're going to have to worry about anything. I think it's going to be a little bit closer, though. I think 35-24. I think it's just going to be just a tad bit closer.
All right. Tulane and Navy, two teams we have not mentioned, fighting to play second fiddle to Army in the American. I'm sorry, it's true. The question is for me is can Navy find the momentum it had to open the season? Tulane's been kind of a stop and start team that's been dangerous to everybody they played. Army was able to dismantle them. I think Navy has a chance to do the same, but by a much slimmer margin. I think they escape 35-28.
Yeah, and I actually don't think so. So Tulane, just so y'all know, is one of the new teams added to the AP poll this week. And I think that they're going to have to buy into it a little bit and they're going to make a good appearance. And I think they just want to build their resume by beating Navy, who's also ranked high. I don't know what that was. Sorry about that noise. Um, but yeah, I think that they're just going to keep it up. They're going to keep up their winning ways. and Tulane will actually take this game 31-24.
You
So
know,
just
that's disgraceful. The
11
next
point.
time you're out on the open seas, the Navy's just going to let you drown.
That's crazy. You gotta show love for all teams. Tulane jumping in there at 25 is pretty respectable.
You know, fair enough. So we now move to perhaps what I think is the most cracking, absolutely exciting game of the week, Missouri and South Carolina. Missouri is still alive in playoff contention, if only on a technicality. And South Carolina has a lights out quarterback in Lenore Sellers that's been able to dismantle whatever's been put in front of him these past couple of weeks. The other side of the ball for South Carolina is really not any better for teams facing them, as their defensive line, specifically their edge rushers, have been absolutely brutal and I believe are one of the top grades in the nation for defensive line. Now, the question is for me is can Missouri score enough to win? I believe Brady Cook is questionable at this stage. He may end up not playing, and I don't think that he's going to make a difference either way. South Carolina wins 27-24.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be close. I just don't know. I was thinking about this and mulling over it while Kieran speaks, and honestly, I just have too much faith in Brady Cook. I don't think he wants the season to end like this. He already knows it's gonna be over. Might as well make a bowl game. Might as well go out on a high and beat another AP top team. I mean, why not? You got nothing to lose now, so just go after it. I say Missouri wins this game 24-20.
All right, moving on. Kansas and BYU. Now, it may surprise you to know that BYU is favored by a meager 2.5 points. The reasoning behind this is Kansas has lost a lot of one score games. They've been in it, they've been able to get the upset in certain times throughout the year, but they've lost a lot of one score games. They could very easily be the cream of the Big 12 if they're able to get a couple more balls to bounce their way. I think they continue to lose one score games, and BYU wins 38-35. They're just playing much too solid football. You've got Ratzlaff and company just absolutely being able to dismantle defenses. And on the other side of the ball, very stout defense, keeping up and absolutely creating a pretty unstoppable recipe.
Yeah, and sadly, I have to say I have fully lost faith in Jalen Daniels. I know he was supposed to be this like cream of the crop. I expected him to win the Heisman. Some would say that I was very wrong. Some would say it was a good shot. He was my dark horse. He did not live up to it, sadly, but I think he's still going to play a great game. He beat Miami. That's a great thing to keep a note of. Will the trend continue? I don't think so. I think, or not Miami. Who am I thinking of? Iowa State. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys.
Whew.
Chicken coma has gotten me. Um, but I do think they will lose in the end. I don't think he can keep it up. I think BYU is just. I think BYU is the last hope for this entire crazy Big 12 that's been going on, and they need to stay solid. They need to stay winning, and they're going to do so. They're going to do so in tremendous fashion, winning 45-24. Big, big win. 21-point win. And that brings us to the game of the week. This is a matchup between our two best teams, or at least the two best teams of the week that we see, and the best game that we think is going to be the most entertaining. Maybe not a blowout, but just the most entertaining game you're going to see, the most bang for your buck. And in this game, we have the team in red taking on some boring volunteers that just showed up one day. And so it's the Bulldogs taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. I think we all know what I'm going to say. I think that it's going to be a good old fashioned dog nation pounding where we just go in there, grab them by the jersey, horse collar, and drag them through the mud.
That's a
To,
penalty.
well, who will stop us is the question. It happened against Texas. It's going to happen against the Volunteers. If you have the initials UT, you're gone. And so I believe that it's just going to be we're too hyped up for this game. We're being disrespected so much. that we're about to go in there and we're about to rock the Volunteers to their very core. Give me the Bulldogs 35-17.
All right. So for me, this game comes down to four, well, really three questions. First off, it's a playoff elimination game. Want to get that out of the way. Clearly, if you lose, you're definitely going home. And if you win, you're not in, but you're pretty close. So the question for me is which quarterback plays better? Can Iamalieva have a breakout? And does Carson Beck continue to put up abysmal numbers? I don't see any turnaround for Carson Beck. Tennessee's pass rush combined with their secondary, which has both flustered him at times. He's made mistakes throwing into the secondary, and he's made pass rush just gets frazzled and gives the ball away. I think Iamalieva is going to play better. I think that's check Tennessee. The second question is there are two excellent defensive fronts in this game. Who controls the line of scrimmage? Georgia's offensive line is looking in better shape after it was banged up for quite a few weeks during the season. But on the other side, Tennessee's defensive line has been absolutely incredible. They've been able to get stops and get wins for Tennessee, obviously led by James Pierce Jr., who we expect to be a top pick in the draft come April. But I personally think that Tennessee is that little bit more motivated, and I think they're going to control the line of scrimmage. If they do, it's a Tennessee win. And if Iamalieva plays better and Tennessee controls the line of scrimmage, it is over for Georgia. But my third question is does Georgia slide? They have not lost two, well, I don't know if they've lost two regular season games for the first time in a long, long time. I can't remember the last time the Dogs lost two regular season games. I'm sure Kirtan does because he feels the pain of defeat often. But it is for all the marbles. I think Georgia slides. They don't know what it's like to lose. They don't know what it's like to have to get back up on that high horse. Maybe they do, and I'm wrong. But with Carson Beck at the helm, I think this ship's going down. Give me the Vols 27-24.
Well, there you have it for this episode of Beyond the Snap. Um, we're happy that you're listening and keep up live because who knows? I would argue right now, if you were to take a prop bet on everything me and Kieran have said, all of our predictions we both picked together, we would have made you some good money. You go tell a friend that, go tell your friend's friend that. Say we're the number one show if you want to get rich. I mean, little birdie told me that. So that's it for me. Kieran, anything else to add?
Nope.
Well, there you guys have it. Thank you for tuning in and good night.
All right. What is your